Chapter 306, Changing the Terrain. Rashi flipped in the air and landed back on his feet but was still dragged backwards for another dozen meters. He looked at Fujin, who was standing in the same spot. However, his left hand was lit on fire. Rashi chuckled and said, "Since you dared to punch my lava armor, you can say goodbye to your HA." His words got stuck in his throat as he saw Fujin wave his left arm in the air and the fire dissipated. He noticed that Fujin's left arm was completely black in color. A frown appeared on Rashi's face as he realized, Iron Skin Jutsu. He can use rank B Earth Jutsus as well? Though it isn't enough to resist my armor for a longer period, but should enable him to be able to punch or kick me. The cut on Rashi's right hand stopped bleeding and began healing slowly. Suddenly, Fujin's entire body became covered in the same color. The fire on his clothes was extinguished as Fujin flickered and appeared behind Rashi. He slashed his sword at his back. Rashi immediately escaped. A sword slash was released from Fujin's sword. It hit the river and left a deep scar across it. Fujin chased after Rashi, thinking, I can't maintain Iron Skin Jutsu for too long. I need to deal some critical blows quickly. Just when Fujin was about to reach him, Rashi turned around and spat out a large amount of lava. Fujin's eyes widened as he flickered away in an instant and landed on top of the river. The lava covered the entire area. Waves of lava surged towards Fujin like a tsunami. Fujin frowned and wondered, does he want to massacre the entire town behind me? Even if it silences the ones who heard my roar, there is no way IWA can get out of this mess without suffering any major diplomatic consequences. Fujin swung his sword at the river. This time, he didn't focus on the penetrating power. Instead, he created a 100-meter-long wind slash. The wind slash hit the river vertically along the length of the river. It caused the river water to gush out towards the lava wave. The water and lava waves clashed, covering the entire area in mist. The lava wave broke through the water wave but lost a lot of its momentum. It still continued forward and entered the river. Knowing that it won't be able to harm Fujin, Rashi appeared on the river bank and ran across the river to fight Fujin. Fujin was about to attack when he sensed a chakra build up behind him. Water release, Raging Waves Jutsu. Water release, Raging Waves Jutsu. Lightning release, False Darkness Jutsu. Bunjiro and Yujeo spat a large amount of water. The water in the river mixed with their attack and it rushed towards Rashi like a waterfall. At the same time, Fumito released a strong lightning current in the waterfall. A frown formed on Rashi's face. He spat out a large amount of lava once again while he retreated back to the river bank. Fujin swung his sword at the lava wave and flickered next to Yujeo on the river bank behind him. The wind slash hit the lava wave. It slowed down the momentum of the wave by more than 70%. A moment later, the combination jutsu of water and lightning hit the lava wave. It forced the lava wave back to the other bank. Rashi slammed his hands on the ground. 3 layers of walls formed by molten rocks appeared in front of him. The combination attack broke through the first wall but was stopped by the second wall. The third wall broke down by itself and molten rocks were fired at the Konoha and Kusa ninjas on the other bank. Fujin swung his sword at the incoming rocks and asked, "What's the status?" The slashes hit the molten rocks. The smaller rocks were split into 2, while the larger ones had a deep scar in them. They lost their momentum and dropped into the river. Yujeo replied, "We tried chasing them, but they retreated below the ground." Chasing became very risky due to their constant and unpredictable attacks from underground. Fujin was surprised. He thought, I see. I guess taking off one arm wasn't sufficient. Sigh, I should not underestimate anyone who managed to gain the elite Jounin rank. Though I guess that others might have helped him. He said, "All right, you guys retreat. I'll retreat soon as well. We will meet up in the same town." His subordinates nodded while the Kusa ninjas sighed in relief. They had seen the terrible devastation caused by Fujin and Rashi's fight. The entire landscape on the other side of the river had changed. There was no longer any grass on the land. Instead, the entire land had turned into volcanic terrain covered in long scars. Even the river wasn't spared. They could see a slash cutting across the river. In addition, though most of the lava was washed along by the river, some of it was still left behind and solidified. It had decreased the width of the river by 20 to 35% in some places. Yujao wondered, why do these cuts on the land look like sword attacks? The Konoha and Kusa ninjas began running along the river to get away from them. Rashi didn't pay any attention to them as he analyzed, Jin should have kept them safe. Even without Jin, they would have a very difficult time chasing them successfully. No other village can compare with us when it comes to making an orderly retreat. Though I could try to kill them, I'm afraid that this guy will allow me to kill them so that he can get an opportunity to sneak attack me. He said in a loud voice, "You must be the rumored spectral swordsman who gained fame recently." As expected, you are from Konoha. The retreating ninjas heard him and were surprised. Yujao looked back at Fujin and thought, he is the spectral swordsman? No wonder his swordplay is so good. Bunjiro wondered, spectral swordsman? What's that? Meanwhile, the Kusa ninjas had a grim expression. After all, the number of Kusa ninjas that fell to the spectral swordsman's blade wasn't small. Ryoichi looked at Yujao and asked, is he the spectral swordsman? Yujao shook her head and replied, I'm not aware of him having any such title. A frown formed on Ryoichi's face. Though Yujao was wearing a mask, he could sense from her words that she wasn't lying. He looked back at Rashi and wondered, is he lying? Or is that Konoha Umbu the spectral swordsman but his subordinates are unaware? Suddenly, his eyes widened. So did the ones of other ninjas who were watching them. For the first time since they began fighting, Fujin grabbed his sword with both hands and pulled it to his right side. An immense amount of wind chakra flowed through the sword. In an instant, he swung his sword forming a proper arc. A gigantic wind slash was released from his sword. Alongside it, extremely sharp and strong winds were released. The winds under the slash hit the river water. Several cuts appeared in the river. And all the river water for around 100 meters was sent rolling to the other side of the bank. The Kusa ninjas were horrified by the attack. Bunjiro was starstruck while Yujao and Fumito had serious expressions. Though they had realized that Fujin was stronger than them, they never imagined that the difference between them would be so high. Despite their emotions, they, like the Kusa ninjas, doubled their speed and escaped. Of course, the one who was the most serious was Rashi. The lava armor on his body began burning brightly as he jumped up immediately and dodged the main wind slash. At the same time, he spat out molten lava and swiftly shaped it into a half-spherical shield. In an instant, it solidified. Hundreds of small cuts appeared on the shield, but it held on as Rashi kept pouring more chakra and lava into it. A second later, it was hit by the water wave. Rashi wasn't concerned about the water. After all, Fujin couldn't control it. But he was on high alert. Though his shield stood strong, he abandoned it and moved to his left. A moment later, a vacuum bullet streaked through the water and hit the shield, piercing it with ease. The river water traveled a long distance along the banks. Due to the heated ground, which was mixed with lava, a lot of it was turned into steam. In a few seconds, the entire terrain was covered in steam and it became very difficult to see. Rashi's frown deepened. A second later, he gathered a lot of chakra in his right fist and punched towards his left. His fist hit Fujin's sword and stopped it. He noticed that Fujin's body was covered with the iron skin jutsu once again. Instead of attacking again, Fujin took a step back and disappeared from Rashi's eyesight. Chapter 307, Where the fuck did you summon me? Rashi cursed, this is annoying. He has completely hidden his chakra just like in Kiri's assassination technique. Before he could do anything, Fujin appeared in front of him and slashed at his chest. Rashi punched the sword once again and managed to push Fujin away. Fujin disappeared and a second later appeared behind him. Rashi turned around and stopped Fujin once again, forcing Fujin to disappear once again. Rashi was expecting another attack from Fujin, but none came. Regardless, he stayed on guard. Seconds kept passing, but no attack came. After 30 seconds, Rashi had enough. Continuously maintaining full awareness while waiting for an attack was very taxing and increased the stress. He gathered a massive amount of chakra in his right hand once again and punched towards the ground. He intended to use the flower fruit mountain jutsu to clear up all the steam. Suddenly, his eyes widened and he stopped his punch. A vacuum bullet passed through the space where his fist would have been had he continued his attack. Quickly, he bent below before moving backwards. Two more vacuum bullets passed through the space he would have been in had he not moved. Rashi gathered chakra and shot a fiery rock bullet from the direction the vacuum bullets were launched. Unfortunately, he didn't sense it hitting anything. Fujin stopped attacking once again. Rashi thought, shit, this is getting annoying. Though I'm confident I can keep dodging successfully, one mistake could cost me my life. But, since when did Konoha get the courage to kill a Jinchuriki in peacetime? Has their strength recovered to such an extent that they don't mind getting attacked by both Kumo and us at the same time? Though Rashi was stronger, Fujin had complete control of the battlefield. Unlike Rashi, whose attacks caused large-scale devastation, Fujin's attacks were always on point. They were all deadly and gave Rashi very little time to react and were quickly followed up by more attacks. For the next minute, Rashi maintained full guard but wasn't attacked by Fujin even once. Finally, Rashi began building his chakra once again. However, he stopped midway and ducked down. A vacuum wave passed above him. He immediately began rolling to his right and dodged 3 vacuum bullets and 1 vacuum wave. Soon after, he got off the ground and continued moving to his right as a vacuum wave landed on the ground. His eyes widened as another vacuum wave grazed past his left leg. He quickly jumped backwards, but a deep cut is left in his left leg, almost exposing his bone. Before he could gather himself, he sensed movement behind him. He ignored the wound and turned around and threw a punch at the incoming sword. The fist and sword clashed once again. Rashi was surprised as Fujin didn't retreat. He was about to punch with his other fist, but his eyes widened and he quickly took a couple of steps behind. He saw 2 vacuum bullets passing a few inches in front of him. His expression became grim as he realized, shadow clones. The Fujin in front of him moved forward and attacked him with his sword. At the same time, another Fujin appeared behind him and attacked his back. In addition, a few more vacuum bullets were fired at Rashi. Realizing the grave risk he was in, Rashi dodged and shouted, "Enough!" Suddenly, a massive amount of red chakra was released from his body. It covered his entire body. At the same time, it released several waves of pure chakra around him. Fujin's clones were very close to him. Their eyes widened but they didn't have enough time to move. They immediately used the iron skin jutsu to protect themselves. The chakra wave hit them and sent them flying away in opposite directions. The red waves also reached the real Fujin, who was maintaining distance and attacking with vacuum bullets. He immediately flickered away while thinking, what the hell? He can use Son Goku's chakra to this extent without losing control. Or does he not care about losing control? The red chakra waves traveled for about 40 meters around Rashi. The steam covering the area was blown away and even more damage was done to the ground. Without the steam cover, Rashi could see Fujin clearly. He looked at him and thought, that was close. With his shadow clones, the danger was amplified exponentially. If I keep dodging, it would only be a matter of time before I mess up. Anyways, now that he has forced me, it's time to end this. At the same time, Fujin also looked at Rashi. Shock could be seen in his eyes. He saw that the chakra covering Rashi had taken the shape of a red-furred and green-skinned monkey, looking exactly like the Four Tails, Son Goku. What shocked Fujin the most was that Rashi looked to be in complete control of himself. He stood calmly in the head of the chakra construct. Fujin was dumbfounded. He thought, impossible. I thought only B and the fourth Mizukage were perfect Jinchurikis. Why would I have fought him for so long otherwise? The sight scared Fujin. He immediately became very serious. He was about to make a move when he sensed some movements under his feet. He gathered chakra under his feet and jumped high in the sky. The ground transformed into small spikes which were launched at Fujin. Noticing the opportunity, Rashi shot a ball of lava at Fujin. Fujin immediately slashed his sword towards the incoming spikes while looking at the ball of lava and analyzing, such a gigantic ball of lava. My vacuum cannon might not stop it. One seal on his left bracer began glowing. 100 explosive tags appeared in front of Fujin in a flash. Fujin controlled the winds and caused the explosive tags to fly towards the lava ball in 3 layers. Rashi was surprised. Just before the lava ball was about to crash into the first layer of explosive tags, all 100 explosive tags blew up. The shock waves from the explosions decreased the momentum of the lava ball until it came to a halt and began losing its shape. The lava fell down to the ground. Immediately, Fujin focused his chakra field under the ground. He realized, someone is hiding his chakra underground. Should be that IWA Elite Jounin. Sigh, what a mess. I need to retreat. Fujin dispelled the 2 shadow clones on the ground to gain their chakra. Rashi looked at Fujin, who was around 100 meters in the air, and muttered, to jump airborne against a Jinchuriki who has displayed some control over his tailed beast. What a stupid move. He began gathering chakra to end the fight, but his eyes suddenly widened in shock. Multiple seals on each of Fujin's bracers lit up. Rashi watched in shock as he noticed more than 2,000 explosive tags appearing in the sky. The number was utterly ridiculous. Rashi was speechless. He wondered, was his real mission to destroy a city or something? In an instant, the wind began blowing. All the explosive tags moved towards the ground at a rapid speed. Rashi didn't bother creating any defenses. He was confident that despite their high numbers, the tags won't cause any harm to him. The chakra body of Son Goku opened its massive maw wide open. Concentrated chakra began gathering in a swirling vortex and pulsated with an overwhelming intensity. Behind his mask, Fujin's expression became very grim. He controlled the explosive tags while weaving hand signs. As the explosive tags moved down, they spread over the entire battlefield and split into multiple waves. The first wave had 400 explosive tags, the second had 600, and the third had 1,200 tags. The explosive tags in the first wave landed on the ground. At the same time, the explosive tags in the second wave maneuvered in the air and surrounded the chakra body of Son Goku. Meanwhile, the third layer appeared on top of the tailed beast bomb. At the same time, it also blocked Fujin from Rashi's view. While the explosive tags were moving, Fujin completed his hand signs. Summoning Jutsu. A cloud of smoke appeared under him. A figure appeared in it and arrogantly said, "The great winged saber-tooth Lord Goro is her." However, his words were cut short. All the explosive tags exploded at the same moment. In an instant, the entire area was covered by a loud explosion sound. The intensity of the explosion made Goro look down in horror. At the same time, he sensed Son Goku's chakra and the fluctuations from the tailed beast bomb. Every single hair on his body stood up. He muttered in shock, "Where the fuck did you summon me, Fujin?" Chapter 308, Killing Tsuchikage with one hand tied behind the back. Fujin landed on Goro's back and shouted, "Goro, there is no time. Return and reverse summon me." For the first time, Fujin saw Goro nod obediently. Fujin used Goro's body to jump even higher in the sky. Immediately after, Goro disappeared into a cloud of smoke. Jin, who was underground, had sensed Son Goku's chakra. Instead of running away, he decided to move deeper into the ground. The massive explosion rocked the land. Despite being over 50 meters underground, he felt the ground around him vibrating. He quickly escaped deeper while thinking, "Don't tell me Rashi used tailed beast bomb. Shit, we are in another country." At the same time, the people in Mizukoshi town were all hidden in underground bunkers. Though the IDE family wasn't as generous as the Kagawa family, they had spent a lot of effort on building good bunkers as their town was very close to the border. So the people were feeling safe. However, they suddenly heard an extremely loud explosion sound. The people were confused and scared. A few seconds later, they began feeling a vibration under their feet. Soon after, the entire bunker began shaking. The people were horrified by the sound of the explosions and didn't want to move out. However, they were worried that they might be buried in the bunkers. So they quickly began leaving the bunkers. Fortunately, none of the bunkers crumbled, due to which no deaths happened. Unlike Jin and the people in Mizukoshi, Rashi was directly attacked by the tags. The explosions covered him in dust and smoke. However, soon, a massive amount of chakra began surging into the dust cover. As the tailed beast bomb was being formed, winds began moving rapidly. The dust was blown apart and revealed his figure. Fujin's face became solemn as he noticed, the explosions didn't harm him even a bit. "I was hoping that the explosion from the first two waves destabilizes him and the explosion from the 1,200 tags pushes the incomplete tailed beast bomb onto him. I guess it was too much to expect." In a few seconds, the tailed beast bomb reached its full potential and stopped growing any further. The noise generated due to the formation of the bomb disappeared. Fujin concentrated on the tailed beast bomb completely. The momentum due to jumping from Goro's body was completely lost and his body had begun falling down slowly. Rashi looked at Fujin and muttered, "Rest in peace." He launched the massive tailed beast bomb at Fujin. As soon as the tailed bomb was launched, Fujin's bracer began glowing again. 100 explosive tags appeared and moved towards the bomb. These were the last tags stored in his bracer. At the same time, he twisted his body in the air to face east. A large amount of wind was blasted from his back, making him fly out of the path of the tailed beast bomb. Rashi noticed Fujin's efforts but wasn't bothered by them. He shook his head and thought, looks like he is still too young. Against a tailed beast bomb, such efforts are pointless. In a moment, the tailed beast bomb hit the explosive tags. Though the tags all exploded, they couldn't even slow down the bomb. The tailed beast bomb reached the same altitude as Fujin and exploded. Fujin turned his head and looked behind him. Fear coursed through his veins, causing his pupils to constrict in terror as he noticed the massive explosion behind him. He thought, so fast. Hurry up, Goro, or I'll be dead. The tailed beast bomb didn't even need a second to reach his previous location. He focused all his chakra on his back, causing more intense winds to be blasted behind him. At the same time, his body was covered in the iron skin jutsu. A powerful blast wave rippled through the air. It reached Fujin in the blink of an eye. It broke through the intense winds behind Fujin as if they were non-existent and hit him. Fujin gritted his teeth as he felt an intense pain in his back. Fortunately, he suddenly disappeared from his position. The blast wave continued expanding for kilometers in the air. The sound of the explosion was heard for several miles. The people in Mizukoshi hadn't even reached the doors of the bunkers and were still feeling the effects of the previous explosion when they heard the loud sound. They covered their ears in pain and were horrified. However, they had no other option but to leave the bunkers. No one wanted to be buried alive. A frown formed on Rashi's face. He looked above and thought, that's weird. His chakra just disappeared in an instant instead of decreasing progressively. Considering his strength and that he wasn't hit directly, he shouldn't die in a moment. Did Konoha gain a successor for the Flying Thunder God technique? But why did he take so much effort to dodge in that case? Due to the explosion tags and the chakra disturbance by the tailed beast bomb, Rashi hadn't sensed Goro. So he wasn't aware of Fujin's plan to reverse summon himself. Mount Mutki. Fujin disappeared from the battlefield and appeared on Mount Mutki. A look of relief appeared on Goro's face as Fujin appeared in front of him. He was about to boast when his eyes widened. Fujin's hardened body slammed into his face with tremendous force. Both of them slammed into the mountain, creating a small cave inside the cave they were in. The sound immediately attracted the attention of other winged saber-tooths. Ryu frowned and began flying towards the cave. Land of grass. Rashi observed the skies properly to see whether he had missed anything. He maintained his form. While he was paying attention to the sky, a slight movement was happening under the ground. Around 10 seconds later, a head popped out of the ground and observed the situation. He looked above with fear in his eyes and thought, so scary. I was worried for my main body. But since I am fine, my main body should have retreated safely. He was a shadow clone Fujin created and hidden underground when he was sneak attacking Rashi under the cover of steam. However, the battlefield changed very rapidly, forcing the clone to hide deeper into the ground, leaving him without any means to provide aid to Fujin. He thought, since my main body didn't dispel me, he should have a reason to keep me here. It's either to kill that elite Jounin hiding underground or to test Rashi. If I try to sense the elite Jounin, Rashi will sense me and defeat me. After all, I'm no match for him and I doubt that elite Jounin will die easily. Not to mention, he is hiding deep underground. Though my vacuum jutsus have good piercing power, they can't pierce through tens of meters of ground. So there is just one option. Against a ninja who could use the wind vacuum technique, hiding underground was very risky. It would severely restrict mobility and the attacks could easily pierce into the ground. But by moving so deep, Jin had unknowingly got into the best defensive position. So Fujin's clone decided to completely ignore him. He focused over 80% of his chakra into his throat. The sudden chakra build-up attracted Rashi's attention. He quickly turned his head and looked at where the clone was. Wind release, vacuum cannon jutsu. In an instant, Fujin's clone shot the vacuum cannon at Rashi. Rashi's eyes widened. He instinctively moved within the chakra construct. The jutsu traveled at a very high speed and hit the head of the chakra shaped like Son Goku. The cannon easily pierced into the chakra and broke through the other side, leaving a massive hole in the head. However, Rashi had moved out of the path of the attack. He controlled the chakra to refill the hole with Son Goku's chakra in a second. Though he wasn't hurt, his expression was dark. Despite being in his strongest state, he was still in danger. Despite not doing any damage, the clone had a smile on his face as he analyzed, though the chakra cloak of a tailed beast provides decent defense, it is much weaker than that of a Susanoo. As long as I have a way to dodge the tailed beast bomb safely consistently, I can threaten even a Jinchuriki. But winning should be impossible for now. Their bodies are just too big and their attacks are too strong. They can easily maneuver their position and dodge my attacks while counter-attacking. Rashi began moving towards the clone and said, "Impressive. To deceive me and make me attack your clone while you stayed hidden safely. No wonder your chakra disappeared so suddenly. But you should have stayed hidden instead of trying to kill me." Rashi was about to attack him again when the clone raised his palm and said, "Let's stop here." Rashi was confused by Fujin's actions. He asked, "What do you mean?" The clone said, "Both our squads have already retreated and neither of us can kill each other. Let's call it a day. We will settle our battle on another battlefield. After all, Iwa and Konoha aren't at war." Rashi's expression became dark at Fujin's shamelessness. He had killed so many Iwa ninjas and yet didn't have an ounce of shame in his voice while claiming that Iwa and Konoha weren't at war. Rashi did not doubt that if Fujin could finish him off, he would never speak such words. Though Rashi could sense it, he never managed to get a hang of Fujin's chakra reserves, as Fujin always masked it to show that it was very low despite being able to fight for a long time. But he was sure that after using so many high-level ninjutsu in intense combat, Fujin's reserves should be very low. He said, "You killed so many of our ninjas and you think that I will just let you go? Besides, how much chakra do you still have left after fighting for so long?" He was about to attack when the clone snorted and replied, "Chakra? I have got more than you and Han combined. If Lord Hokage didn't permit me to kill you, then do you think you would still be alive? Heck, I would have gone to Iwagakure and killed your old Tsuikage with one hand tied behind my back." Chapter 309, Injuries. Rashi was left speechless. It was the first time he had heard someone claim something as ridiculous as that. Even him and Han fighting together wouldn't dare to claim that they could kill Oniki. The claim was so absurd that he didn't even get angry and instead laughed. He asked, "Kill the old man with one hand tied behind your back? Are you called Senju Hashirama or Uchiha Madara?" At the same time, he calmed down and thought, he is trying to rile me up by trying to make me angry. So, he wants me to drop my guard or make a mistake and land a critical hit. But, what means does he have to harm me when I am cloaked by the four-tailed beast's chakra? Does he still have a stronger attack than that cannon and the chakra to perform it? Fujin's clone didn't care how absurd his claim was. He wasn't sure if his main body had used reverse summon or flew away on Kaito. If it was the second case, then he needed to waste some time to ensure that they would be too far away for Rashi to even know where to chase. If it wasn't, then he could just collect more information from Rashi and transmit them back to his main body. The clone cursed angrily, "What? Do you not believe me? Do you think I am bluffing? Lead me to Iwagakure. I'll defeat that old geezer with one hand tied behind my back. I will even spare his life as my leader didn't ask for it. Rashi looked at the clone with a deadpan expression and thought, "You're right. Bring along someone with as lethal jutsus as you." Still, this is amusing. Even that Deodara kid isn't as brazen as him. Rashi replied, "Sure. Let me seal your chakra and then you can travel with me." The clone retorted, "Seal my chakra? What if you go back on your word and attack me when I'm helpless?" "That won't do. I'll be traveling without any restrictions." A frown formed on Rashi's face as he thought, something is off. He is giving almost no signs of a sneak attack. Is he wasting time to regain his chakra with a soldier pill? Though Rashi had an advantage in chakra, he didn't want to let Fujin recover his chakra and keep bugging him with the wind vacuum jutsus. He opened his mouth and spat a wave of lava towards Fujin's clone. Fujin's clone sighed and began running away. He muttered to himself, "I barely have any chakra left. I think I can flicker just twice at best." Rashi noticed him running and thought, "As I calculated, he is low on chakra." He immediately chased the clone. Due to his larger size, his movement was much faster. He reached the clone and threw a punch at him. However, despite having a complete advantage, he was on guard against any counterattacks. The clone flickered along the river banks and ran in the direction opposite of what his subordinates and the Kusa ninjas had taken. Rashi chased and was led away from the town on the opposite bank. A frown formed on his face as he thought, "I have to finish the battle quickly. Though I can control the beast's chakra, I don't have total control over it. I can't maintain this state for long." He opened his mouth and launched a large ball of lava. The clone sighed and used his second body flicker. However, Rashi chased and attacked once again. The clone looked at the incoming ball of lava and thought, "This is as far as I can go. It's fine. The main body should be safe." The lava ball hit him and exploded, dispelling him. As he was on the opposite side of the lava ball, Rashi couldn't see him being dispelled into a cloud of smoke. A frown appeared on Rashi's face. He wasn't happy. He thought, something is wrong. This was too easy. Almost as if it was a shadow clone that had run out of chakra. As the lava spread out, Rashi noticed that there was no dead body or even bones left behind. He realized that his guess was right. He fell silent and began thinking rapidly. He calculated, if this was a clone, was the one in the air his real body? If the real body managed to escape, then it would make sense for the clone to exist and waste time. Or could it be that both were clones? After all, fighting me was foolish. So did he send another clone to distract me while he ran away? Or perhaps he is still hiding and wants me to believe that I have killed him so that I leave or put my guard down. A bunch of ideas appeared in his mind, but Rashi couldn't be sure which was right. He stopped using Son Goku's chakra and returned to his normal state. Most of the injuries on his body were already healed. Only a scar was left on his left leg and right hand. He concluded, if the one that was hit by my tailed beast bomb was the real him, then he has managed to escape. I can't track him. So no point in considering that. I'll just assume that he is hiding here and look for him. He is dangerous. It will be best if we kill him before the start of the next Great War. He suddenly turned his head to the right. The ground was moving and a person climbed out. Jin looked around and asked, "Is he dead?" Rashi shook his head and said, "Unlikely. He has escaped or is hiding underground. Help me look for him. But be careful of any sneak attacks." Jim was surprised. He thought, even Rashi couldn't kill him. He nodded and cooperated with Rashi to scan through the area. Mount Mutki. Goro complained, what the hell? It feels like a block of iron fell from space and hit my head. Fujin got on his feet. His body was still shivering. He coughed blood a few times and muttered while breathing heavily, sorry. Just the blast wave sent me flying. Fujin was still scared. After transmigrating to the ninja world, Fujin had been very careful. Until the root was dissolved, he tried to keep his abilities as hidden as possible to avoid gaining Danzo's attention. During the missions, though he had grown to love a strong fight, he always controlled his impulse and always chose the easiest and the most efficient option. Though Rashi wasn't the strongest opponent he encountered, this was the first time he came so close to death. Against Kakazu and Kaminari, he had managed to escape very quickly. Against Darui, though his position was bad, his life hadn't been put in danger directly. Despite the risks, he always held his life and death in his own hands. This was the first time that he had completely trusted his life and death in the hands of another. Goro noticed Fujin's fear. He stopped complaining and became serious. This was the first time he had seen Fujin in such a state. He asked, are you all right? Fujin nodded. He finally ended his iron skin jutsu and inspected his body. His left hand had several burns up to the elbow. There were several other burns on his body. The worst was his back. He had inscribed several seals into his clothes. Despite them, the back of his jacket and shirt was blown apart. Even his mesh upper body suit was blown. A few of the metal pieces from it were embedded in his back. In addition, the blast wave had damaged his back as well. He could feel that some of his rib bones were cracked. Realizing the damage, Fujin's expression became grim. He thought, fortunately I used the iron skin jutsu. Otherwise, just the mesh itself might have killed me. Goro noticed the injuries and said, you are injured. Fujin nodded and said, it's fine. None of the injuries are serious. Goro sighed in relief and asked, in what mess were you? And what was that dangerous chakra? Fujin sighed and said, he was a Jinchuriki, a ninja who hosts the four-tailed beast. I thought that he couldn't control it. But my information was wrong. That's why I fell into such a dangerous position. He looked at Goro and said, thanks Goro. Had you been a second late, I'd have been dead. Fujin genuinely was thankful. Goro chuckled and said, you are worrying too much. Though you aren't as good as this lord, your skin is extremely thick as well. Both suddenly looked towards the entrance of the cave. Ryu's massive body appeared in their eyes. Ryu entered the cave and observed the destruction. He asked, what happened here? His eyes landed on Fujin and narrowed. He asked, who injured you? Goro and Fujin gulped as they felt the killing intent emitted by Ryu. Chapter 310, A Bottleneck. Ryu was indeed angry. He had placed a lot of hopes on Fujin. Though he hadn't taught him anything yet, he was preparing to guide Fujin in the future. Fujin was about to answer when he said, leave it. Heal yourself first. Then find me. Goro, look after him in the meantime. Ryu calmed down as he noticed that though there were a lot of injuries on Fujin's body, none were life-threatening. Goro replied, don't worry Dad. You can leave Fujin in this lord's care. Ryu ignored his son's antics and left. Following him, the remaining winged saber-tooths left as well. Goro looked at Fujin and said, but, this lord doesn't know how to heal humans. Fujin took out a bottle and said, yeah, I know. He ate a soldier pill. The battle with Rashi drained his chakra a lot. Just when Fujin was about to retreat, Rashi unleashed his full strength. Summoning Goro had taken up most of his remaining chakra while the rest was poured into Assassin's Rush and Iron Skin jutsus. Had Goro not reverse summoned him in time, he was prepared to dispel his clone underground to get some more chakra. Fujin withdrew a paper seal from his ninja bag and crushed the seal on it. He looked at Goro and said, "I'll need around half an hour to regenerate some chakra. Carry me to a glacial lake. It will help to soothe the wounds temporarily and aid in the healing process." Goro replied, "Sure. Hop on." Fujin jumped on his back. He flew out and carried Fujin to a glacial lake that was located lower on the mountain. Land of Grass. The Kusa ninjas and Fujin's subordinates were rushing away from Mizukoshi. Ryoichi looked at the Konoha Umbu and said, "We won't be able to accompany you to the Kagawa family's town. We will be heading straight to Kusagakuer." One of the Jounins with him said, "But shouldn't we inform his family about the losses first? Our families are there as well. We need to me." Ryoichi cut him off and said, "No. This matter is huge. If you spread the news, chaos will spread throughout our country. We need to report to Kusagakuer and form a proper plan first. This matter needs to be handled by the diplomats." He looked towards Konoha Umbu and said, "I am grateful for your aid, but I hope that you won't spread the news of what happened in Mizukoshi either." Yojao replied, "I'll pass the message to our captain. It will be his decision." Ryoichi nodded. The Kusa ninjas split off from the group and moved in a different direction. The Umbu continued on their path before changing their directions as well. Though Fujin had asked them to meet in the Kagawa family's town, it was just a code word for another small village they had come across while traveling. However, they suddenly heard a loud sound behind them. They stopped and looked back and noticed a smoke cloud in the air. Bunjiro asked in surprise, "What was that?" As they were already over 10 miles away from Mizukoshi, they didn't sense the fearsome chakra fluctuations of the tailed beast bomb. Neither Yojao nor Fumito could provide any explanation. Bunjiro asked, "Should we return to check if Captain is all right?" Fumito shook his head and replied, "No, you are in Umbu. Following the instructions of the captain takes priority." Bunjiro nodded reluctantly. He was a bit worried for Fujin. They continued their journey. A few minutes later, they felt a vibration in their pouches. They quickly stopped and took out a paper tag. It had a seal similar to the one which Fujin crushed. In a moment, all 3 of the paper tags began burning. Bunjiro's eyes widened. He muttered, "This." Fumito and Yojao also became serious. Bunjiro said, "When Captain handed us this tag, he said that if the seal burns, we have to retreat back to Konoha." "What happened?" Yojao replied, "The fight might have been very difficult. Or for some reason, he might not be able to meet us up at the rendezvous point. Let's leave quickly." Bunjiro and Fumito nodded. They changed their direction once again and moved towards Konoha. Rashi and Jin looked for Fujin for around half an hour but didn't find him for obvious reasons. They gave up and retreated from the Land of Grass after meeting up with the remaining IWA ninjas who were hiding underground. Since the outside was calm for half an hour, the ninjas in Mizukoshi finally dared to climb on the walls and observe the surroundings. The sight shocked them. On the other side of the river, the land was leveled several times for over a kilometer. Not a single strand of grass could be seen. Instead, it was covered with solidified lava. The river had changed as well. A wall of lava had solidified in its path, forming a temporary dam. It stopped the water flow, forcing excess water to move around the wall and through the banks to continue forward. They gulped in fear at that sight. Ide Tomoki had a very ugly face. He could see the political implications of the day's events. He regretted asking Iwagakure to assassinate Kagawa Noriyuki. Mount Mutki. While all forces withdrew away from Mizukoshi, Fujin was resting in the glacial lake. He wondered, so, where did I mess up? He analyzed for a bit before concluding, my information wasn't right. I don't recall Rashi having such control over Son Goku in the series. And none of the intel about him in this world mentioned this. But, Rashi has been the Jinchuriki since before the Second Great Ninja War. It's impossible that the village doesn't have this information. So the only possible answer is that for some reason, they have kept this information as top secret. A frown formed on Fujin's face. If he had known this information, then he wouldn't have fallen into such a risky situation. However, his expression became normal as he thought, though the village has to be blamed, I am at fault as well. I was overly dependent on the intel I had and didn't even consider Rashi using Tailed Beast Bomb while maintaining his sanity as a possibility. Even if the village had provided all details, what if my opponent gained new skills and abilities in secret? Though depending on intel gives a good advantage, I need to avoid overdependence on it. Especially when it comes to Jinchuriki and S-rank ninjas. As someone who gave the highest importance to his survival, Fujin immediately figured out his flaw and decided on what changes he should make to avoid falling into such desperate situations again. His mind immediately began thinking about the oddity. He thought, but why isn't Rashi considered a perfect Jinchuriki? Wait, now that I think about it, though he controlled a lot of chakra, he didn't transform into Son Goku like how B could with Jayaki. Could it be that even without a Tailed Beast's approval, Rashi could harness his chakra to such an extent and use Tailed Beast Bomb? Fujin thought for a bit and concluded, yes, that should be it. So though he isn't a perfect Jinchuriki, he isn't far from it. It's kinda like Naruto's first Kurama chakra mode, but instead of having just a little bit of Son Goku's chakra, he has access to at least half of it. Now that I think about it, I recall Yujito transforming into Matatabi against Akatsuki. While Gaara was able to construct Chikaku's body during the Konoha Crush. I guess it is easier to harness the chakra from Tailed Beast with lesser tails. I should be careful if I run into Yujito or Han in the future. They might be able to use Tailed Beast bombs as well. On concluding, his mind immediately began analyzing the fight, ignoring the battle after he released that massive chakra. This fight was a bit weird. Rashi was much stronger than me. Be it in chakra, experience, defense, or physical strength. But I had the advantage in speed and lethality, giving me the initiative for the majority of the fight. But, no matter my advantage or initiative, I just couldn't injure him. Even the few injuries I caused began healing almost immediately due to the massive chakra. This sort of exposes a big flaw in my combat system. Or rather, the imbalance in it. Right now I am heavily dependent on my combat speed and the speed and piercing power of vacuum jutsus. These two factors make it impossible for anyone under Elite Jounin to last long against me. But, Elite Jounins are able to dodge my vacuum attacks and stop or dodge my sword safely. It makes it impossible to win those fights if they don't get distracted. Another flaw is that this method of fighting is very exhaustive on chakra. The main reason for this is that my other skills haven't managed to keep up with these two. Only sword skills and taijutsu comes close. The other elements and genjutsu are much weaker and can only be used in certain situations. Even fuinjutsu can't be used effectively in battle yet. However, I don't see any way of improving those skills in a short time. In fact, even improving vacuum jutsus is becoming very difficult. I can only create more forms that won't increase my combat strength drastically. It's almost as if I have reached some sort of bottleneck. How do I break through? Involuntarily.